Hello and welcome to My Own Worst Enemy. Most of the content you'll find on this channel will be about board games, war games mostly, with a heavy emphasis on solo play, which by the way is why the name is My Own Worst Enemy, because whenever I play a solitaire game, I am always my own worst enemy. Although sometimes I'm convinced that the dice conspire against me, but that's probably for another video. Content here will include actual gameplay sessions, tutorials, unboxings, maybe some first looks, reviews, how-tos, who knows. Maybe we'll even get an interview or two. I don't know. This channel is also probably going to have some role-playing game stuff because, well, in fact, it's pretty much a guarantee it will because I like role-playing games too. And also look for more than just physical tabletop board games and fantasy games, those kinds of things. There's probably going to be some computer things, PC games, so look for that. Okay, so what's on the digital table for today? And of course, like some of you probably already have noticed that this is a digital table. It's Tabletop Simulator. You can tell from the controls here. Recently learned how to get into Tabletop Simulator. For a while I avoided it because I would do things like drop pieces over the edge and they would disappear forever and ever and I'd never see them again. But I think since I've tried it, I think they made a lot of improvements to it and works a lot better for me now. And also I've been watching over at Armchair Dragoons, a fantastic strategy war game site. If you've never been there, you probably need to go. You owe it to yourself to take a look. They have something every Saturday night called Saturday Night Fights, and Cyrano over at Armchair Dragoons has done an excellent job of piquing my interest in Tabletop Simulator. And so I was inspired to create the game we're going to play today in Tabletop Simulator. There was not a mod for this in the workshop. I created one from scratch. So what game am I referring to? Well, let's take a look. We have Don't Tread on Me from White Dog Games. This is by Arbin Madison. I think this is the first solitaire game I played, that I bought and played, solitaire only, and it is a solitaire only board game. Things I like about this game is it's difficult. Every time you play it, it's different. It's not the same outcome. Well, unless you count me being defeated every time, the same outcome. It does provide randomness, so there is replayability here. And like I said, you have to really think about what you're doing. Uh, that's not to say there are things about the game that I don't like. There are. We'll talk about we'll talk about it now actually as I scroll back out here and we take a look at the entire table. Here's the game map for Don't Tread on Me. And some of you are probably looking at this saying, well, that doesn't look like Don't Tread on Me. It doesn't. One of the things I disliked about the game was the map. And I can show you here the map from the original game. If we go over to the box, and this is why I like Tabletop Simulator. Things like this. We flip this box over and lo and behold, here's the map. Whoop, there we go. This is the map that you get when you buy Don't Tread on Me. And it works for what it does. It has a very small footprint, which is a bonus. If you want to grab this game and take it on the go, you can. Throw it on a table pretty quick. But if you look at it, to me, there's no atmosphere here. I'm not immersed in the time period of the American Revolution. To me, this looks like, apologies to the artist, but it does look like some sort of graph you'd see in some corporate company giving the seminar on accounting. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's too harsh. But I did decide to create my own map. And I actually, if I ever play this on the physical copy and show you guys that, you'll see that I actually took this image, this map, and created it and created a board from it. So I actually have a hard copy of this map that I do play this game on. But we're going to play it here today in Tabletop Simulator. So before I begin, let's just look at the map. There are some things I want to note here. This is the turn track. We're going to keep track of our game turn here. It also has pounds. We'll be issued money each turn in pounds, sterling I'm assuming. Each turn, if we look, turn 1, we'll be getting 5 pounds to start with, and then as the game progresses, varying amounts of money will come in. This track will track state loyalty, and as loyalty drops, that's bad for us. We want to keep loyalty high to the crown, of course. And we can see that there are maximum state loyalty levels for some of these states. For instance, Carolina can never go higher than a loyalty 12, which sucks, but we'll just have to deal with it. Mainly on this map, you want to concern yourself with the 5 regions, and they're called states. This is highly abstracted. They're not what we in the United States would think of as a state. You see you have New England, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Carolina. Each state is going to have 4 counties. In New York, we can see there's 4 counties. We'll worry about these special markings as we go along. I'll explain them to you. And then we also have 6 sea zones. We have the North Atlantic, Massachusetts Bay, Long Island Sound, Delaware Bay, Chesapeake Bay, and Cape Fear. You'll note that each sea zone will link to a state. One of these regions, each region has a sea zone. So you can see that in New England there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sea zones. But you say, wait, there's 6 sea zones, and there are. And that's because the North Atlantic always links to the current target state. So in this case, if we look at turn 1, which is where we will start, we are given a target state. Now these target states come from London. They're telling us each turn where we should fight our battles. They know more than we do, so they're going to tell us where we should focus our attention, and that is going to get us into trouble. So this North Atlantic sea zone will always connect to that target state. So in this case, you can see that New England will have 2 targets. Well, it'll have 2 sea zones in the first turn, Zone 1 and Zone 2. And you will see why that's bad in just a few more seconds here. Okay, again, I'll go through these other boxes in more detail as we go along, what the Prisoners of War box will do. We have a British ships box. This is where our ships will go. The Caribbean will contain the rebel ships, and the French eventually will show up, and they'll go down there as well. The battle box, when we have a battle, we'll put the units here and use the militia track to track the amount of militia that shows up. And we have our combat results tables and some other cool things over here that I can use to mark the map with as we go along. The die rollers that we're going to need. Now these came from, again, this is inspired from Saturday Night Fights. Really neat little dice roller. At first I wasn't too thrilled with it. The physics seemed a little like, there's a good example where it kind of, you saw the 4 all the way up and come down. Sometimes that'll land on that 4, and that just kind of bugs me. But I find that it is pretty random. It does work pretty good, and we're going to use those. And you can see here we have the Armchair Dragoons logo. Again, highly recommend that you visit Armchair Dragoons. And now, okay, and we have these little figures too. This is just decorations I put on the table. But, I mean, how could I not? Look at these figures. This is from Saturday Night Fights, but I think I don't think Cyrano created these. These are actually from, I want to say Black Powder. But look at, they're fantastic. Look at the detail on these figures. If you've never seen this before, even the faces, it's really cool. Really, really amazing. These are the Americans, and oh my goodness, I've never noticed this. Well, he looks very angry. Probably because he knows we're the British in this game. All right, so anyway, I'm not gonna go into any more details on the table itself, other than, well, I will say that, well, no, I won't. Well, I was gonna say the table is a custom table. This is also another mod on the workshop for Tabletop Simulator, again inspired by Cyrano, and I highly recommend this table. It's pretty cool. You can click this button and customize it to any scale. You can change the color of the felt. I'm sure we'll be making much larger tables if I continue with these videos, but nonetheless, our table is small today just because this game doesn't take up too large of a footprint. So let's jump right in. And I'm going to go right down the sequence of play. And what I'll do is, at least for the first turn, and I'm assuming I'll do more than one turn, but for this first turn we will step through each step in this sequence of play, and I will guide you through what you need to do, step by step. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments below, or again, if you go to Armchair Dragoons and sign up, I am BB Mike over there, and I will be more than happy to answer questions. So let's start. We are going to start in the forced adjustment phase. And the first step in that phase tells us to receive our pounds. So we will go over to our turn track, and what that means is we check turn 1, we see that we are given 5 pounds. So we start with nothing. We start at 0. So we take our 5 pounds and we will mark that on the 5 track, reminding us that, hey, we have 5 pounds to spend, which we will certainly do. That's that. That's it. That's all you do. You just mark your amount of pounds to spend. Very easy. The second step, news instructions. So what happens with this, and I don't have them on my turn track. They are when you get the game. This is what the game turn track will look like. It will tell you in each turn what the news item is. And so in this case, you look and you see that, well, our news item is shot heard around the world. So if you look in the rule book, and I'm going to pull my rule book up here while I'm talking, but honestly, I've played this so many times that I have it memorized. This is shot heard around the world is, of course, the opening shots of the American Revolution. And so what this means is you're going to skip the first, well, you're going to skip the British ground phase in turn 1. And if we look at our detailed sequence of play, it tells us just that. Skip turn 1 only. So we will not do any of these 9 actions the first turn, just the first turn. So we'll make a note of that. Keep that in mind. When we get to D, we'll skip right on to E and not do this. But as I said, each turn will tell you something different to do, and that's one of the neat things about this game. Those won't change. Each turn they'll be the same, but they do have a huge impact on the game. So that takes us to phase B, the smugglers phase. Smugglers. Now you probably saw some smugglers as I showed you these sea zones in the New England region. So the place smugglers phase, what this will do, this is important because as we play the game, smugglers, this is what's bringing in war materials for the rebels. Okay, so it's the French. Let's all be honest. The French are sending supplies to the rebels, and they come in through these smugglers. So wherever there's a smuggler in a sea zone, there's a chance for a continental army to show up. And we will pull, there's 16, we will pull them randomly and place them according to where these smugglers are in the sea zones. There can only be 2 smugglers at a time in any sea zone. It's very important, and it's also very good for us. You wouldn't want any more than 2 in a sea zone. So for this step, we go to the Caribbean. If there are any smugglers in the Caribbean, and there's 1, you will roll a die to figure out which sea zone to place in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. They are numbered for convenience. So let's roll and see where we're going to place this smuggler. And let's hope that it doesn't go to, well, okay, it's a 4. Well, that's Pennsylvania. So you take the smuggler and place it in that sea zone. So placement of smugglers is ended. Next phase, we go to phase C, step 1, rebase the French fleet. Well, the French aren't in this yet. They won't show up until, I believe it's turn 7. Yes. So we're not worried about the French yet. We'll just make a note that when we hit turn 7, that's something we're going to have to attend to. Step 2, attack smugglers. This is where we get to take out some of these smugglers. And this is important. Now, in order to take out a smuggler, we must have an active ship, or a ship that we can actually use. In game terms, we must have ships at sea. Right now we only have 1. If we look at this unit, it is a strength 4, which is the strongest unit that we can have. You'll note that there's a 2-pound mark on it. Well, if we want to use this ship, it's going to cost us 2 pounds to send it to a sea zone and attack a smuggler. I know from experience that that's exactly what I want to do this turn. I want to attack a smuggler. You don't have to. This is strictly optional. But I definitely want to. And so you look at the board and you figure out, well, where do I want to stop these continentals from sprouting up? Well, for the first turn, and really, for me, I found that this is pretty much important for most of the turns. If you remember, I said Zone 1, North Atlantic Sea Zone, connects to the current target state. And if you remember, I said that was New England for turn 1, and I believe for turn 2, yep. And you see turn 3, it's going to go to New York. But for now, turns 1 and 2, those continentals are going to be showing up in New England. So really, I could come down and try to take out, I probably should have talked about victory conditions here, so let's touch on that just for a second. The Liberty Bell. So this game, you want to stop the revolution. And what's going to happen is, we're directed to control 3 states, and again, remember, these are regions. So these 5 regions, every turn we must control 3 regions, one of which must be that target state. So for example, the end of turn 1, which we're in now, we need to control New England and 2 other states. And control means only British units in that state. And of course, that's strictly British units. You can have Indians and say, oh, our Indians are in there, but that's not enough. It's got to be British units. And the Hessians will show up, and I don't believe it can be Hessian units either. It must be British. So what we're trying to do are knock the rebels out of these states. So for this place, to attack this smuggler, I'm going to put it in North Atlantic. I'm going to take Hal. I'm going to pay the £2. That's going to take us down to 3. So you see we went from 5 to 3. So I paid the cost of this. So now I can take it and attack any one of these smugglers. And you can only attack, it's 1 for 1. I'm going to attack the smugglers in C Zone 1. I can only attack 1. I'm going to attack him. What I'm hoping to do is keep the Continentals out. One of the things that can happen, just because the Continentals go into New England through these smugglers, they may not necessarily stay there. They can move. They can move around. They can go on campaigns. So I found it best to try to keep the North Atlantic free and clear as much as you can, because like I said, that the target zone is going to move, and you're going to want to keep, at least in my opinion, you're going to want to keep the North Atlantic clear. So let's try that. We're going to do that. I am going to attack this smuggler. So I told you his strength was 4. Smugglers cannot defend themselves. They don't get to attack. So on a roll of 4 or less, this smuggler will be eliminated. And eliminated sounds really good, but it's not as good as it sounds. What'll happen is if I do eliminate him, he just simply goes back to the Caribbean for this turn. He'll have no impact in placing Continentals or anything. He will have a chance of coming out next turn though, but for now, it will eliminate him from this turn. So let's see what we get. I've got to get a 4 or less to eliminate him. Yeah, I probably should have used the red die there. Yeah, I should have, because that's a horrible roll. Okay, what does that mean? Well, the smuggler gets to stay here. I rolled above my strength point, so this means Hal has been used. You can only use him once. He goes back to harbor. He's done for the turn. And that's all I can do. Those smugglers get to stay there. So let's go to the next phase. Well, the next step in the phase is shadow the French fleet. There are no French yet, so we can not worry about that now. Let's go to phase, well, here we are. British ground phase. So if you remember, we were told in the news to skip this turn 1 only, skip this phase. So we're going to do just that. We will do none of these things. We're going to roll right on down to E, the first battle phase. And what they're showing here in this battle phase, this happens in every battle. You'll follow these exact same steps in any battle you do, and I'll walk you through them. But there are 3 battle phases we'll go through. There's a second battle phase, and then there's some campaigns where there'll be battles. But this is what you'll go through. So let's look and see. What is a battle? What constitutes a battle? Normally, after the phase that we just skipped, the British ground phase, we would have been placing units and most likely causing these battles to occur, but we didn't get that phase. But we are going to have a battle. This is the opening turn, so this is the shot heard around the world. And of course, the first battle is in Massachusetts Shore, the county that's in New England. So to do a battle, well, let's mark. We're going to mark, so we're going to take our battle marker. We're going to move our units. Let's move our units out first. We'll put them on this side, because there's the British side, obviously, right? There's the American side. We have 2 units in that county. Battles occur where there's 2 opposite forces in the county, and of course, for the beginning of this phase, that's the case. These are committees of safety, or COS units. These are very numerous in this game. There are currently 5 that were in Massachusetts Shore. So one of the things that we were told in the first news item was that we would not be the attackers. Normally we would be the attackers in this round, but the rebels are, obviously, because they're firing the opening shots. So let's break apart this stack. There are 5 of these COS units and 2 British foot soldier units in the Massachusetts Shore. This is the way combat works. First things first, we look at New England, and this is where state loyalty comes into play. It's all about hearts and minds, right? We want New England to be more loyal to the crown than the rebels. So what we do is we look at New England, we check their loyalty. Currently New England is at a 3. They're at loyalty level 3. So we go over to our militia table. Now, depending on where a state is in its loyalty, low being, or I'm sorry, 0 is completely disloyal to the crown and 100% in rebel hearts and minds, if you will. We want the states to be higher. We want them to be loyal. So 3, I'm going to mark this here so we don't forget. 3 is not so great for us because this, we're going to roll, and this roll will determine how many militia show up for each side of the battle. You'll note this is the militia track. We can only ever have 2 units show up. The rebels can have 3. And if you look at the row that we're on here, it's definitely favors the rebels. Best we can hope for is a 1-1. That's on a roll of 6. So actually, that's what we're hoping for, is that we roll a 6. Otherwise, if we roll a 1, we're going to have 3 of these guys show up, and we'll have nobody show up for our poor little British soldiers here. So that's the first thing we do. You want to set your militia, and there are things that will affect your role and what happens with the militia table. I didn't explain those yet. I will say, I'll just show you a quick example. If this battle had taken place, let's say in one of these counties that has this British flag icon, we would add +1 to this roll because this would be a county that is loyal, more loyal. It's loyal as stronghold in game turns to us, and that would have given us a +1 to our roll, which would have been nice. But we don't have that. We're in Massachusetts Shore, and there's really no special influence on this roll. We'll talk about the other ones later, as I said. So it's just a straight roll right now. And like I said, we're hoping for a 6. And we get a 2. This is not good. So 2. It means, just as I had feared, that 3 militia units are going to show up on the side of the rebels. And it's just going to be our 2 British foot soldier units. All right, now we determine, and I told you I was going to walk you through this, and I need to do a better job of doing that. First thing we would have done was check for French intervention. We didn't need to do that because the French aren't in it, as I keep saying. Determine sides. This is determine who's the attacker and who's the defender. And the rebels are attacking, so they're the attackers. Call for militia. We've done that, and of course it'll tell you down here to remember that if you're in a loyalist stronghold or you're in an area where there are no militias allowed, just make note of that. British horse reaction. We have no horse units yet, therefore we don't have to worry about that. But this gets us into the meat of combat, and what we do, and this is why who the attacker is important. You'll take the total strength points of the attacker, divide that by the total strength points of the defender, and that'll tell you, that's where you'll get your odds, your combat odds. And that's just the percentage on this chart that'll determine what the outcome is. And of course, the higher for the attacker, the better. So the way this works is, if you look at each unit, there are 3 strength point numbers on each unit. This is always in this order. This is the strength point, the first slot. This is the strength point in the wilderness. So if this British unit is let's just go back up here for a second. Let's take a look at Virginia, because I believe it has all 3. It does. And we even have a unit I can show you with here. So this loyalist unit, it has strength of 1, 2, and 3. So what this means is he's in a fort right now, and each county can be one of 4 different types. And honestly, the third type, which is position 3, it can be towns or forts, and it's the same for either. I don't really think there's a difference at all. I don't know why they weren't all towns or all forts. I guess it's just flavor. But if this unit is in a town or a fort, then his strength is 3. If he's in a farm, that's the middle one, his strength is 2. And if he's in the wilderness, his strength is 1. So if you look at the counties, woods, and of course this is my own this is my own version of the map, but you can see that's woods, wilderness. Farms, you can see the farm fields, so these counties are all farms, and then this would be town or a fort, town or a fort, town or a fort. So that's how you know what type of county they're in. So if you go back and look at New England, you can see that this battle is taking place in a farm. You can see the farmland there. So that tells us we need to be totaling up strength points in this second row, the second spot on this counter. It's 1 for the cause units. So what we're going to do, we are going to total up all of the strength points for the attackers, the rebels. So there are 5. Each one is 1. 5. Militia are always 1, 1, 1 for everything. That never changes. So there are 5 strength points for the Kais plus 3 more for the rebel militia. So there's 1, you see that 1 marker, but remember there's 3 of these. So there's 3 plus 5 is 8. So I'm going to put it in the calculator just so I don't forget. There's 8 strength points. Then we add up our strength points. This is the British units. And again, look at position 2 on this. It's 3 strength points plus 2 strength points. None for the militia because, well, we had none show up. So 5 strength points. So it's simply attacker strength divided by defender strength to give us a percentage. So it's 1.6 or 160% would be where our percent value would end up. But we always round down in this. So that would put us on the 150% column. So this is where the rebels will attack at. They will roll D6, and this will tell us what happens, what the outcome of the battle will be. And I'll explain these as they happen. Basically, again, we don't want them to roll. We don't want high numbers here. If he rolls a 6, DE means defender eliminated. So that would mean we would have to eliminate these 2 units, and we don't want that. So there are things that can shift the column. We'll get into those as they happen. You could have, I think Congress being in a state you're fighting in could shift the column in their favor, but here we have none of that. It's just a straight, they had 150% rounding down and we have to deal with it. So we roll, here's their attack. We're going to roll for the rebel attack. Hope for low numbers. Okay, I saw the 6. So we get a CA. What is a CA? That's a counterattack. And that's actually not too bad. Not too bad. What that means is we parry the rebel attack. So what a counterattack means is you always take your marker, it goes to 100%. So that means we will be counterattacking at 100%. We change nothing else. Same battle. Oops, sorry, there's a phone ringing there. That's going to happen quite a bit. We'll just have to make note of it and continue. So okay, I think that's done. All right, so anyway, this is the counterattack. We move this to 100. Counterattacks are always attacker at 100%. So now we are attacking the cause units and the militia that showed up. We have parried, fought them back, and we're going to make our counterattack. Simply a straight roll on the 100% table. So here we go, and we're going to be hoping for a high number again. We want to eliminate the defender. That would be lovely if we can roll 6 here. 4. 4 is an exchange. This is not good for us. Okay, so an exchange. What happens in an exchange is we total up all the strength points for each side. And we've already done that. If you remember, 8 strength points for the rebels and 5 for us, the British. Well, the side with the higher number of strength points wins this battle, so it's going to be a rebel victory. But what it means is we must eliminate. I'm sorry, our units are eliminated. Of course we eliminate. So let's do that first. With an exchange, since we lost, these units are eliminated. So we're going to take these 2 units and they go to the prisoner of war box. That's where eliminated British units go. We'll reset the militia. Well, actually, let's leave these out for just a second. What an exchange means for the winner is now they must eliminate 5 strength points worth of units because we had 5 strength points. And whenever you win an exchange battle, you win, but at the cost of strength points. So this means that the rebels have to eliminate 5 strength points worth of units. Well, militia do not count towards this. So let's put that back to 0. It's strictly they must eliminate 5 points. Well, they only have 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what this means is their weakest unit will remain in play to hold the battlefield. Since they're all the same, it just means that one of the cause units will survive. The other 4 we will place back into the American rebel force pool. They do not go to the prisoner of war box. These are special units. They always go back to the force pool when they're eliminated. This cause unit, however, will hold the field. No, he will not go to Vermont. He will hold the field in Massachusetts shore. It is a rebel victory. So I have not forgotten. We haven't been here in a while, I realize. It's because we were doing the battle. We apply the battle results. We just did that. So we're here. Apply any battle effects on loyalty. So every time a side wins in a state, and there are other factors that will influence this, but in this case, currently there are no factors that will influence other than they won the battle. They won in New England. So anytime you win a battle in a county, in a state, you will gain or lose loyalty. So if we had won here, we would have moved the New England loyalty marker up towards the crown, up towards that 16 mark. But because we lost, New England is going to lose loyalty to the crown. So we will lose 1 loyalty point from New England. So they will go from an already lowly low of 3 to 2. Not good. And that is it for battles. So if we go back over here, of course, you're seeing here they're telling us to make sure you apply any battle effect on Congress. We weren't in a state where Congress was. We reset our militia markers, and there was no pursuit here. One of the outcomes could have been a pursuit, but that's not what we rolled. We rolled a counterattack with an exchange as our result. And that's going to take us into the F phase, place rebels. So to make sure we're all still good here, we are. Place rebels phase. And this is where we're going to place committees of safeties. Well, go take a look here. We're going to form committees of safeties, and we're going to deploy continental units. So first, let's deploy our committees of safety, our cause units. So to deploy a cause unit, and we're only going to deploy 1, the way this works is you will roll a d6, and that will determine which state is going to receive this cause unit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're saying, okay, where's 6? Well, if you roll a 6, that's bad for us. If you roll a 6, that says to take 2 cause units and put them in the current target state. So again, we're hoping that a 6 does not get rolled here. But let's see where this cause unit will end up. And it is going to state 3, which 1, 2, 3 is Pennsylvania. So this cause unit will get randomly placed inside Pennsylvania. And of course, you can see this will tell us where to place the cause unit depending on what we roll. Let's roll that again. 3. That was kind of weird. See, that's the weird die roll I was talking about. It didn't seem like that even rolled to me, but we'll take it. It is what it is. So this cause unit is going to go to this county in Pennsylvania because it has the 3, and that's what we rolled. We'll put him there. And that's it. 1 cause unit. The only way 2 would have been placed is if we had rolled a 6, but we didn't, so we just placed the 1. Now we go to deploy the Continental Army units. This is a little bit different. The way this works is we will roll the d6 again, and what this will do though is this will tell us which sea zone to begin with in deploying our Continentals. And this isn't too important early in the game because there are so many Continentals available to be drawn, but what happens here is we will roll a d6. This will tell us which sea zone to start in. So we will start in sea zone 3, and I'm going to grab this just so I don't forget where we're starting. So we'll put it here. So what we do is we start in sea zone 3. Any smugglers in a sea zone, for each smuggler in a sea zone, you will pull one random Continental Army and place it randomly in a county in that state that the sea zone attaches to. So we'll start with zone 3. There are no smugglers, so we skip on to sea zone 4. We'll just keep increasing through the sea zones until we loop back around and we're done. Well, sea zone 4 does have a smuggler, which is not good. And actually, it links to Pennsylvania, which already has that cause unit, so it's even worse for us. But that's okay. We'll deal with it, I hope. So I'm going to pull a random Continental from the box, and I'm going to shuffle, shuffle, shuffle because we want it to be random. So we pull a Continental randomly, and there are some different Continental units in there that have different meanings in the game. So we pull the Continental, he gets placed randomly. Let's see where he gets placed. There's the 3 again. Let's clear that. So he's going to go into this county, Quaker County, where this cause unit already is. So that's the 1 unit there. We move our marker on, and there are no smugglers in sea zone 5. There are none in 6. We circle back around to C-Zone 1. Well, there are 2 smuggler units in C-Zone 1, and as you remember, this connects to the current target state, which in this current turn happens to be New England. So we're going to grab 2 random continental units. Remember, we already shuffled this, so they are random. Oh, and we pulled the Lee unit. This unit, it is a special unit, and it will harass some of our horse units from moving around on the map. And I say horse units, I could call them cavalry. I'm sure that's what they mean, but they're actually called horse units in the rules book, so we'll call them horse units. But yeah, he will stop us from taking horse actions as we need to later, but we won't worry about that right now. What we will do is place him. So the first Continental Army will go to County 2, which is Connecticut Coast. So we put him here, and we roll for the other one. And it's a 6, so he's going to go into this Maine and Nova Scotia County Wilderness. All right, moving right along to C-Zone 2. Well, that also connects to New England, and there are also 2 smugglers in this C-Zone. So we're going to grab 2 more Continental armies. Okay, and let's see where the first one will go. He will also go into Maine and Nova Scotia. Well, we'll just put him there. Well, and we'll see where this guy goes. He's going to go into Massachusetts Shore, probably to celebrate with this cause unit that just won this wonderful victory against us. So moving right along, we go to C-Zone. Well, we already did 3. That's where he started, I believe. So that's it. That's all we can place. It's that easy to place the Continentals. The next step would have been to move George Washington. He is currently in the out of play box. These are all units, of course, that are out of play that will come into the game through events or leave the game, because you can certainly have units get removed from the game through events. But we have no George Washington yet, so he stays out of play. And then we go to the next number 4, turn Benedict Arnold. Well, Benedict Arnold is, as I said, you can pull random different continental units like we saw Lee's horse unit here. Benedict Arnold is a continental unit that can come into the game, and we can actually attempt to turn him to the British side, but not until turn 9. I believe it's turn 9. Yes, it is turn 9. So we won't have to worry about him for a while. So we're done with the place rebel phase. This will take us to that second battle phase I alluded to earlier. So what we do here is, again, we check each state for any county that has 2 opposing forces, rebels and British. There will be a battle fought. So New England, well, there's a lot of rebel forces. There are no British forces. So there will be no battles fought in New England. New York is still empty. Pennsylvania has 2 rebel units, but no British units, no battles there. And Virginia and Carolina, there are only British units in those 2 states, so no battles there. There will be no battles in the second battle phase. Reconvene Congress. Well, Congress is not in flight. They are out there. They are currently in Pennsylvania, but they're not in flight. They're still conducting business as usual. All right, now we are in the conduct rebel campaigns phase. I am not a fan of this phase. This is a painful phase. This is where the rebels are actually going to go on campaigns. They can be minor or they can be major. The way this works is, and we'll just go in, roll a die, depending on the die roll. There may be one major campaign or a minor campaign. Let's actually go over here and do this. Let's see it in action. So what's going to happen, I'm going to roll 2d6. Roll 1 through 5. Let's say I roll a 3 and a 4. So what that would mean is there'll be 2 minor campaigns, a minor campaign in Pennsylvania and a minor campaign in Virginia, because I rolled a 3 and a 4. If I rolled a 1 through 5 and a 6 on the other die, so let's say I rolled a 2 and a 6. That means there will be just one major campaign, but it'll be in New York because I rolled a 2. The 6 says, hey, that's a major campaign in New York. If I roll 2 6s, that's always a major campaign in New England. So let's see what we get. We're going to roll 2 die, 2d6, and let's see if we get 2 minors or a major campaign this turn. Well, it's a 2 and a 5. We get 2 minor campaigns. And I'm going to mark those so I don't forget that we rolled a 2. So there's going to be no, don't go into the, let's just put it in the Z zone. So, and I put it, no, okay, yeah. What did I say? 5 and 2. So, all right, we'll put it here. So, I'm just going to put it up here because it was a 2. All right, so 2 minor campaigns starting in New York. Well, and I don't think this goes into any great detail. It kind of gives you a highlight of what you're supposed to do, but from memory, I know I'm going to walk you through this, and I have some notes here I can look at if I get totally lost. As I said, we're going to have 2 minor campaigns, but before we move on to these campaigns, we have to place reinforcements. So the rebels always get reinforcements in this stage. They get to reinforce their campaigns. And the way this works is, since there are 2 minor campaigns, we're going to randomly select, well, we're not going to randomly, well, we are going to randomly select a continental, but we're also going to take one of these cause units. And the cause units are going to go into the higher number state rolled. And so in this case, we rolled a 2 and a 5. Cause unit is going to go into, see, and this is got to be careful here because I do this sometimes. We actually rolled a 5. That's state 5, not C zone 5. So it should be here, Carolina and New York. So this cause unit goes into the higher number of the 2 rolled, and it is it gets placed in a certain order, and we'll do that in just 1 second. And then we pull continental goes into the lower number state, which was New York. So this continental will get placed in New York. Remember, these are the reinforcements. So the way this works, there's a priority here of the way you place these. We'll start with the continental first. And then you look in the rule book, it will tell you what that priority is. And I'll read this through, and we'll place him. So the first priority would be to put this continental unit into the lowest number rebel occupied county. Well, you can see there are no rebels in New York, so we ignore that and go on to the second priority, which is the lowest numbered empty county in the state. Well, that we have. We can place this continental in the frontier, this wilderness county, because it's empty. There's nothing there. And stop, because we met the second priority, right? So we go down to Carolina, where we had this cause unit. It gets placed the same way. So it's lowest number rebel occupied county first. Well, no, there are no rebels in this county, so we skip that. Next priority would be the lowest numbered empty county in the state. Well, actually, that we do have that. So let me look at the rules real quick because I do forget these are there. Yeah, we're good. So what happens is this is the lowest numbered empty county. There's nothing here. It's empty. He can go there. So that's our rebel reinforcements. Now we can proceed to the minor campaigns. So we have 2 minor campaigns. I'm going to look at the rules here real quick, make sure I don't forget anything. Let's start with New York. And you can see this isn't going to be much of a campaign with no British units there. So if you look in the rule book, it will tell you if the state has British players or if the state doesn't have British players, how to proceed. So we're going to go with the state does not contain British player units. So what happens? The rebels in this state launch a minor campaign against any British units. I'm getting confusing myself already. Where I'm reading the wrong paragraph. That's going to happen a lot too, I suppose. State does not have any British units. All rebels in this state must be placed in the critical county of the state. Now, a critical county in a state is noted by these blue dye. You know, all the counties have these colored dye. Any county that has the blue dye in it is considered a critical county. And you're saying, well, there's no blue dye in New York. No, the blue dye has other meanings in the game. And for New York, the rule book will tell you to consider Hudson Valley the critical state. It's not marked blue. And honestly, I think that's because I think it has to do with the French fleet. I think this is to remind us that if the French fleet can never be placed in the Long Island Sound, I think historically it was impossible for the French to do that, and so they're just, our way of knowing that they can't do that is to not show the blue die, and it has dual meaning in this game. So just remember that the critical county is Hudson State for New York. So what we're going to do is move this continental unit, this continental army goes to the critical county, Hudson Valley. And there's no one there, there's no battle, done. And we go to our second minor campaign. And this does contain a British unit. It contains Loyalists in Piedmont. So if the state does contain British units, place rebels in that state in the following attack protocol order. So again, we have another order. This is in the rule book, starting with number 1. Attack British units already in the same county. Well, no, it's empty, so there are no British units in that county. So we look at the second order priority. Attack the nearest British force to the left. Well, left in this game would be considered lower, so we can't go any counties lower. If we were in Charleston, we could go down. We can't here, so there is no left. So that is the second priority. We felt that. We look at 3. Attack the nearest British force to the right. Well, there is a British force to the right, so he can definitely move into this county now and attack, and that's what's going to happen. So, and I'm going to take a quick look. I know with the major campaign, no. So with the major campaign, you can have augmented battles. That does not apply to a minor campaign. So we go straight to battle. So I'm going to remove these because we are done marking our minor campaigns. We go straight to battle. This is the third battle phase. So only one battle can occur. That's in Carolina. So let's do that. Let's move our battle marker over here. Our units will go into the battle box. And we have one loyalist unit against a cause unit. All right, if you'll remember from our battle phase, and this would walk you through what to do, I'm just going to do it. The first thing we do is we set our, we want to call our militia, and in order to do that, we have to check the loyalty of Carolina. Carolina is currently at a loyalty of 8, so we mark 8 on the militia table, and we check the county to see if there is anything. Well, in this case there is. We see if there's anything that will affect this militia call. Well, this British flag indicates a loyalist stronghold. So what that means is when we roll for militia, we're going to get to add a +1 to that roll. So hopefully that will help us get higher on this die roll. Hopefully if we'll roll a 6. As I told you, higher is better for us. We want more of our militia to show up. So we took that down to 1 already. Let's roll for militia. Remember, we get to add +1 to this roll. Okay, I think I'd mentioned earlier that I think the dice conspire against me, and there's a clear case of that. So we roll a 1, +1 from the loyalist stronghold, and it's actually a 2. So, well, it could have been worse. That means we get 1 militia unit showing up, and the rebels get 2. Not as bad as last time. Still not great, but not bad. So next, we look to see what type of county that this battle is taking place in. It's a wilderness county. So remember, I said these were in order of strength points, or in order of wilderness, farm, and town fort. So in this case, the rebels are attacking because remember, they placed the units into these counties and they're on a minor campaign. So they again are the attackers. So we add up their strength points. Since we are in the wilderness, we have 2 for the cause unit, plus there are 2 militia units present, so 4. So we're going to remember there's 4 strength points for the attackers. We're going to look at our loyalist. Now this is good. He has a 3 in the wilderness. That's fantastic. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Well, look at that. What is 4 divided by 4? Well, it better be 1. We'll double check. It is. That places us on the 100% column of the combat result table. There are no other factors, nothing influencing this battle, so it's just a straight roll. And since they're attacking, we'll let them roll and see what we get. Okay. So a 6. Well, that's not good. 6 is DE. That means defender eliminated. And we are the defenders and we get eliminated. That means this goes into the prisoner of war box. Ouch. Okay. So let's reset this. This means that the Committee of Safety unit takes Piedmont, and yep, and that's it. That's the end of the battle. Since they won that battle, the battle took place in Carolina. What do? We go to Carolina and lower their loyalty by 1 because we lost the battle. Ouch. That was not good. That was not good. All right, but we can deal with it. This is only turn 1. Okay, that concludes the place rebels and the campaigning phase. No more battles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we conducted all of our battles. So let's move right along. This will take us next into the logistics phase, with the first step being trading with the enemy. And the way this works is, if we have a lobster unit in any, well, what is a lobster unit? Well, any red unit that says British on it is considered a lobster unit. And you can see that these are lobster units here, and there's lots of them in the prisoner of war box. I can show you. These 2 are lobster units. If you have a lobster unit in a state, you can trade with the enemy, and it can only be your unit. You can't have it can be lobster units only. You can't have any rebels in that state. So if you have a lobster unit, let's say we had a lobster unit in Virginia, we could, and I think I'm telling you wrong here. I'm going to look this up real quick because it may be any state with a lobster unit. I don't think it matters if the rebels are there, actually. No, it's not. So as long as there's a lobster unit, we can do this. We can trade with the state. So, but we don't have any. But if let's say we had a lobster unit in Carolina, we could raise Carolina's loyalty by 1 for each pound that we spend. So I could spend 3 pounds, and it's a maximum of 4 because there are 4 counties. But I could spend these 3 pounds if I had a lobster unit and raise their loyalty by 3. Well, at least as long as I stay below their ceiling or at their ceiling or below. I can't do it. I don't have any lobster units. Honestly, I'm going to say that even if I did, I wouldn't do it at this point because money does carry over. We will get anything we don't spend. We will get to carry over to the next turn, and that is a purchase units phase for us. So thinking about holding on to what I have, I wouldn't do it if I could. So let's move right along. Next step would be to perform naval transports. Here we could move any unit to any state, again at a cost. It would cost us 1 pound to move, let's say, this loyalist unit to, I don't know why I'm having such a hard time today saying loyalist, but I am. We could pay 1 pound to move this to any state, as long as there's not a rebel unit there. We could move to any of these 3 counties, or down here, at the cost of 1 pound. Again, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to move anybody yet. We really don't have much to move anyway, so I'm going to leave everyone where they are. There is a note you'll see that beware of abandoning a state. There are rules concerning that if you are the last British unit to leave a state, well, that could be considered abandoning that state, and there are penalties for that. So you want to be aware of that. Takes us down to the next step, naval reset. Move all Royal Navy units in harbor to at sea. So this is just upkeeping. It's telling us that we may now take any units that we have in harbor to at sea. This places them back into the game. Available pool. And I believe that's it for the logistics phase. Now we go to the Liberty phase. First step says continental enlistments expire on turns 2 and 4 only. So we don't have to worry about this here. This will be, we will worry about this as it says turns 2 and 4. So next turn this will come into effect, but for now we just ignore it. So the next step is to determine control and move the Liberty marker. This is how you lose the game, and you'll see why. So we check for state control. And as I said, for us to stop this marker from moving, and this is just to stop it from moving, we must control the target state plus 2 other states at the end of each turn. So remember, the target state, according to the game, it's still New England. We in no way, shape, or form control that. So already it's, why even check? Why even look? You don't control the target state. The Liberty Bell's going to move. But just for learning purposes, we don't control any of this. We don't control New York. We don't control Pennsylvania. So right now the rebels control the first 3 states. That's horrible. They actually control 4 states. I'm sorry. They control New York, New England, Pennsylvania, and Carolina. We only hold Virginia. We are off to a miserable start. This is not good. So what it means is, again, target state, 2 other states. Well, we have 1 state and no target state. But again, no target state alone is enough to prevent this from staying put. It's going to move up 1. So the Liberty Bell gets moved up 1 on the track, moving ever closer to 9, which is game over for us. The next thing we do, step 3, is perform some state loyalty modifications at this point. And again, the way this works is, starting with New England, state number 1. At the end of the turn, depending on who has control of a state, this will influence the loyalty of the state. New England, it is in rebel hands, so New England loyalty will decrease by 1 because it is in rebel hands and not our hands. Well, their loyalty is down to a 1. That's not good. And we move on to New York. In New York, it's only rebel units in New York. It is rebel controlled. We go down 1 in New York. So New York, where are you, New York? Well, they were at 10. They're now at 9. Pennsylvania, rebel control. Pennsylvania goes down by 1. It's now at a 6. So it comes down. We'll move Carolina back over. That was Pennsylvania. Virginia, and actually we have one that's going to go up. Virginia is British controlled, since we have the only units in Virginia, so that's going to come up 1. Yay. Carolina, it is it is rebel controlled, so it's going to come down 1. It's down to 6 now. And I believe that is that for that step. Step 4, determine control of Quebec. We have not talked about Quebec yet. It is up here. It is currently British held, and we do want to maintain Quebec because if it falls to the rebels, that's very bad. But for now, we control it, so it has no effect on gameplay. If the rebels control it, it would cause this to move again. It's the only time in the game this Liberty Bell can move twice. So thank goodness we still have Quebec. Check for victory or defeat. Well, I already told you that, turn 9, that's where we're going to have defeat. So we're a ways from that yet. No need to go further on that check. And that'll take us to the random events phase. Random events. Well, there's a random events chart up here. And what we will do is we will roll 1d6. We roll 1d6 until the invasion of Quebec happens. Once that happens, we'll start rolling 2d6. Once the French enter, we'll roll 3d6 on this table. But for now, beginning of the game, we're just going to roll 1, and it will give us a random event, or a multiple of random events, because there can be more than 1 random event per line. Let's see what we get. A 6. 6s are bad in this game, right? No, not all the time, but they can be. So if we look at the random events table, we rolled a 6. I'm going to move this down here to remind us of that. We actually get lots of events. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to get 5 random events at the end of this turn. The first one being that the revolution is hijacked. And you'll see that it says 15.3. That's referring to the rule book. And if you look in the rule book, there is a listing of all the random events and their effect on gameplay. So let me grab the rule book here, and I'm going to call up these random events. So we'll look at Revolution Hijacked first, and what that says is New England aristocrats and southern slave owners have their own plans for a post-war America. So basically what's happening here is there's some clashing amongst the rebels, some infighting, and what this means for us is we're going to roll 2d6, and it says roll 2d6, the corresponding states will increase their loyalty by +1 and only 1 if there is at least 1 rebel unit present. That's actually, odds of this happening are pretty good for us because unfortunately most of the states have a rebel unit present. And if we roll doubles, then we'll get to increase that one state by +2 if there's a rebel unit there. And if we roll a 6, it means nothing. So let's roll our 2d6. Okay, we got to bump this up to 2 and roll. And it looks like states 3 and 5. So if states 3 and 5 have a rebel unit in them, we get to bump up loyalty. Well, Pennsylvania is 3. There are rebel units there. So we get to go to Pennsylvania and increase its loyalty by, well, it's hidden under here. We get to increase its loyalty by 1. So it goes back up to 7. That's good for us. And 5, I'm sorry. Well, yep, 5. 5 is Carolina. Well, there's a rebel unit there. That's Carolina. So their loyalty goes up by 1. So they go from 6 to 7. So that was good. And that's that. That's the first event. Next event says, what does it say? It says Indians attack. 15-7. Oh, again, this is in the rule book. But what this means is London has ordered the use of Indians in the Revolutionary War here. So if there are any Indians available in the Indians available box, and there should be because we haven't used any yet, and there are 2 units. This tells us that the player chooses, that's us, the player chooses and places immediately either a Mohawk in New York or Pennsylvania, or Cherokee in Carolina or Virginia. The Indian unit must be placed in the lowest numbered county free of rebels, and then immediately reduce this chosen state's loyalty by 1. So there's a cost here. We're going to lose state loyalty for utilizing Indians in it. But our choices are, we can take the Mohawk unit and put them in New York or Pennsylvania, or we can take the Cherokee unit and put them in Virginia or Carolina. And if you look, these units do better in the wilderness. It's a 3 for the Mohawk unit, 2 for Cherokee. I'm going to put, you know what? Since New York is going to become a target state fairly soon, I'm just going to go ahead and put this Mohawk unit in the frontier of New York. And that will reduce their loyalty by 1. So we go from a 9 to an 8 in New York. But that's that. And I believe there are more events to come. Frigg is diverted. I don't like this one. But it's not going to affect us this turn because this says take, well, I'll read you the event. 1 3-strength British naval unit is moved to the in harbor box and cannot be used this turn. They're just saying that something is happening elsewhere in the world and we wouldn't get to use a strength 3 ship in the next turn, but we don't have any strength 3 ships. We only have a strength 4 ship, so this is a non-event for us. We ignore it. And I think we have one more. No, we have 2 more. We have War in India. So what is War in India? Remove 1 white band unit permanently from the game. That's 1 white band unit. So there's a couple of different types of units in this game. There are blue band units, as you know, we have this 1 prisoner of war, which is a blue band. Where's a white band unit? Well, we have, in the out of play box, we have 2 white band units. And I've got a feeling that that's the only white band units that we have. And it is. So, it's not good. So we take one of these white band units and it is permanently removed from the game. So, looks like this is the better of the 2. It's my choice, right? Checking out, yeah, just says to remove 1. So we're going to take this guy and he's done. And you know what? We're going to put him, let's put him at the feet of our decorations over here. So he's going to watch with these guys. He's out of the game. That's really not good for us. It's 1 less unit we're going to have access to later. And the last thing to do is to check Vermont. So Vermont is a special area on the map, and Vermont, depending on which way Vermont is leaning in this game, it will have an impact on, I believe, battles. We'll check on that as we go through the game. I believe it influences battles. It'll probably cause a column shift, or I think it does cause a column shift, but we'll double check it. So right now we're going to check to see which way Vermont is leaning. The way we do that is, let me see the way we did it. We roll a die, and I forget the numbers. That's what I'm looking up. It's on a roll of 1, Vermont will go pro-British. 2 through 4, it stays neutral. On a 5 or 6, it'll become pro pro-rebel. So let's see, which way will Vermont swing? It's a 2, which what did I say a 2 was? I thought I said it was a neutral, and it is. So they're going to remain neutral. We do not move the Vermont status marker. And now I believe we have, let's look, yep, that's it. No more random events. We have completed that step of this phase. And that brings us to the end of the first turn. Last thing to do is to advance the turn marker 1. So we go from turn 1 to turn 2. It is now, as you can see, late 1775. And we move this back to the force adjustment phase, and we will begin turn 2. But I am going to stop here for now. I hope you've enjoyed this first walkthrough. If I made any mistakes, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll make note of it. I'll try to do better next time. I'm going to make mistakes, and I do not mind you pointing them out. In fact, I prefer it, and that way we can all learn. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts below, and if you like this, we will certainly do more turns, and I will see you soon. Thank you.